Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Pills, a practical guide to self-care. And before we jump into today's episode, which I am sure will be a very lively conversation with Aisha Beau Johnson, don't forget to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Share it with a couple of your friends. Tag me over on Instagram at Candy Washington. I will show you some love and tag you back. And don't forget to check out the show notes for all of your free self-care goodies and dive into the Basic Girl's Guide to Self-Care for some of my favorite treats. So without further ado, let's meet Aisha Beau Johnson. She's a writer, digital content creator, and speaker. She specializes in beauty, lifestyle, and wellness. And prior to her career as a digital content creator, Aisha was a fashion publicist. During her career as a fashion publicist, she planned and executed a number of press events, New York Fashion Week shows, and brand launches, which is pretty impressive. So, welcome, Aisha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your start and your background? And then, how did you make that transition from fashion publicist to, a wellness, self care, beauty, lifestyle content creator?
Yeah, so I I guess I started in college. I was I was studying public relations. Well, I originally started out doing journalism because I wanted to be a fashion editor,
Mhm.
a magazine editor, but then I started to learn more about publicists and what they did and how they executed events and different things behind the scenes. And that really intrigued me. So I made a transition while I was in school to majoring in public relations with a minor in fashion merchandising. And then from there, after I graduated, I started working at various agencies with, as you mentioned, different ready to wear and accessories brands, and working on New York Fashion Week shows, brand launches, putting together media kits and reaching out to the media on behalf of the clients that I worked with. And my goal going in was always to eventually become the head of communications for a luxury fashion brand. And that was what I was striving to do when I was working really hard to get to that point where I was working in house and I was leading all of the PR efforts for one brand. And I actually ended up getting that when I was 27. I ended up becoming the head of PR for a global luxury brand. And I realized that when I got there, I still wasn't very happy or fulfilled. Throughout my time working in fashion, it was definitely a really unique experience. I felt really, honored to be working in such a fun and fast-paced industry. But I think behind the scenes for me, there were a lot of things that I didn't necessarily agree with, and I struggled with just some of the dynamics of my coworkers and the clients that I had. So it just wasn't, I just felt like it wasn't for me. I was excelling and I was doing really well, but mentally I felt like I wanted to do something more. I wanted to not only help others and make an impact on other people, but I was kind of tired of being in the background. And no matter like what I did, the clients and the my bosses always wanted more and they were never satisfied, and I just felt I needed to branch out. And one day I was in the office and I had always been able to keep it together relatively well throughout my time, and and cry in private and make sure
Yeah.
that I I like I kept up a good rapport with my coworkers and whatnot. But there was one day where I just had a panic attack in the office, and I no one saw. Obviously, I
Yeah.
went to the bathroom again, but I it was a moment where I was just like, you finally reached the point that you had been working so hard to get to. You did it at such a young age, like you're here, but you're still unhappy, you're still unfulfilled, you're still working for people who are terrible
Yeah.
and want to make your life even worse. So like something's got to give, and I decided to leave that job. I didn't really know what I was going to do next. I had already been blogging just as a hobby
Mhm.
since 2016. So I had my blog and I was like, well, I guess I'll just continue blogging and see what happens
Yeah,
and, figure it out along the way. And so I left that job. I actually just had my 3-year entrepreneur anniversary yesterday.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's crazy to say 3 years because that time when I left, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm about to do. And I'm a pretty type A person, so
Yeah.
I always felt like I knew what I was going to do. Like I knew, like, okay, I wanted to be a journalist, but then I decided, okay, I'm going to be a publicist, and I know that if I'm going to become a publicist, I'm going to get to this level and whatnot. Like I just had a roadmap, and this is the first time I didn't have a roadmap. And I just allowed myself to see how it worked out and allowed myself to explore various opportunities that I wouldn't have if I had, stuck the course in my old job. And I started freelance writing again.
Mhm.
I was,
Yeah.
contributing
I
to
would
my blog. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, I would just like to say, what came up for me while you were talking and while I was researching you for our interview, there's a lot of similarities between us. Like I lived in New
Yeah.
York and I worked again at a very high profile fashion house and PR, and then left and did corporate marketing and PR, and then got to that point, which is what you're talking about, where I was like, this cannot be my life. Like there's something bigger, greater than myself. I have a higher calling. I have a purpose.
Hmm.
And so I kind of left that world behind, moved to LA to also become, a digital content creator and all those fun things. But I think what really resonated with me is you were talking really about your moment of surrender, right? Where you were type A and you had everything planned out, and then you're like, okay, there's really no there. So
Hmm.
there has to be a different way. So I'm gonna surrender to the path coming to me rather than me trying to dictate and control the path. So I think that was like pretty powerful. And I love that, you had that moment of, there's something better for me. I'm gonna surrender to what is out there and pave my own way rather than dictate and control what the way is. Because I definitely had that moment myself. And so what also resonated with me while I was looking over your story and your journey is you're talking about being diagnosed with PTSD as a Black millennial woman. And
Hmm.
I think that is um, very relevant and very timely. And I think literally all generations of Black women are suffering from some form of trauma or PTSD
Hmm.
just for no reason other than just existing. So, did you
Right.
want to talk a little bit about your diagnosis and your journey with PTSD?
Yeah, definitely. And you're like 1,000% correct. I definitely feel like when I found out that I was diagnosed with PTSD, I felt like it made so much sense. It made
Absolutely.
so much more sense for me because I had previously been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. And, like I said, I'm type A, so I'm always, my anxiety is always very high and I'm always, worried and stressed and whatnot. And so that I understood, but when I was recently diagnosed with PTSD, that really resonated with me because I have gone through a lot of trauma, and not just the trauma that I've experienced, the trauma that my mother has experienced has been passed down to me as well. Growing up and seeing what she's gone through has in some way become my part of me and my DNA as well. And having experienced those things and having always been that person who pushes through and continues on and like is praised for being resilient when sometimes it's okay to to not be, and to be soft and understand that these things have affected me. And so since then i've I've really tried to do a better job of acknowledging the traumas that I've experienced, and not in a way in which I'm like, okay, I've acknowledged it, I'm throwing it away, but I'm allowing myself to no longer feel held down or defined by those things.
Mhm.
And it's definitely a consistent effort and a daily process, but I do feel it's something that is really relatable to a lot of other Black women because, as you said, like just existing, it
Yeah.
can sometimes be traumatic, like the fact that you have to second guess how you wear your hair or how you dress or how you answer a question, like every single minute is under the radar if you're working with other people or interacting with other people. So yeah, so it's tough. It's really, really tough. But at the end of the day, I do feel like I am making strides on a day-to-day basis and working hard to just uncover more of my own authenticity and stand more firmly in who I am and being comfortable in that. And that's definitely helped.
Absolutely. And what came up for me when we were talking was, yes, there's absolutely, like generational trauma passed down from, grandmother to mother to
Mhm.
daughter. Absolutely, there's generational trauma. And then there's also, as you're talking about before, being in corporate America or, that type of structure,
Mhm.
even at work and also in life, there's always those like microaggressions as well. So there's like the
Mhm.
big T trauma, like the big stuff that we kind of identify as, trauma. But then there's also like the little trauma. It's like that, oh, can I touch your hair? Or how does your hair do that? Or, oh, that's such a unique name. Or like, where are you really from? Or, just like little
Yes.
or like if you're in a place and you have a position of authority and your authority is constantly being questioned, whereas
Mhm.
nobody else's authority is being questioned, or your intelligence being questioned, or so I think it's all of those microaggressions and those little traumas that add up to so much that of course we're living with PTSD and anxiety
Mhm.
and depression, because when who you are is constantly being questioned or threatened, or you have to not be vulnerable and you can't be soft and you can't express who you are without the threat of backlash, you are no longer viewed as human. It's a way to dehumanize us, and we have to
Mhm.
be superwoman. We have to be, better and not react and not have feelings and just sort of pretend everything is okay and let it roll off our back, when that's not the case. We are fully formed, beautiful human beings who should be allowed to experience every spectrum of humanity as our authentic selves. So I think it's really good to have that conversation about, as Black women, carrying that trauma, carrying the generational trauma, carrying the trauma of microaggressions, carrying the trauma of existing. And I think,
Yeah.
and I know, like with me, what I had to deal with when it came to this was every time something would happen, I'd always think, is this happening because I'm Black? Is this happening because
Right.
I'm a woman? Is this happening because I'm a Black woman? And when you
Mhm.
always have to have that question, it undermines your sense of self. And I
Yeah.
think so yeah, so for me, kind of how I deal with that is therapy and journaling, creating boundaries, self-acceptance work, working on self-worth, and just really letting go of giving an F of what other people think and just letting my humanity be enough and
Yeah,
and share
definitely.
that fully. So I love that we're having I love that we're having
Yeah,
that
no.
conversation, because sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard to have it, and especially with someone who identifies with it.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think it's so important, and like you said with therapy, I think that is
Mhm.
really, really important too, because there was a point where, prior to being diagnosed with PTSD, like I said, I was diagnosed with anxiety and I was just taking medication, but I was not seeing a therapist regularly. And I think
Mm.
we really take for granted how important it is to have that outlet outside of ourselves, that other person to talk to, someone who, doesn't know you, isn't a part of your life outside of that hour that you're in their office, and who can, fully help you and help you to come to a realization of like what it is you're going through and the fact that it's not okay and that your feelings are valid. So when I started to see a therapist regularly, I think that's when things really changed for me. You can do a lot of the internal work, you can do a lot of the you can make it take a lot of steps to practice self-care on a regular basis, but I think that that is absolutely one of the most important aspects that have helped me through this.
Agreed, same. I think for me, yeah, when I started going to therapy, I think that was a fundamental shift because I
Mhm.
also think it gives you exactly like you said, it's an objective, licensed professional person who is there to only support you in your journey. I think sometimes when we turn to friends or family, it's not that they have ill intentions, but people who are connected to you in a certain way, they just see you through a certain lens and they have their own perspective and their own connection to what you're going through. So they can't really be objective. So I think it's really good to get a good therapist that you connect with and trust. And I think that's a really good thing to do on the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I also wanted to talk about your pivot from going from a part-time content creator to a full-time content creator and influencer. Like you just celebrated your 3-year anniversary, which I think is amazing. And I know a lot of people out there kind of wonder, how do you become a content creator? How do you become an influencer? What is it? How do you sustain yourself on it? So did you want to give us any guidance on becoming a full-time entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's all about there's a lot of routine, a lot of discipline
Mhm.
baked in because this is in itself, a full-time job and there are so many different moving parts, especially when you're starting out. You're essentially you're your photographer, your creative director, accountant, lawyer, all of those things. All of these roles I had to kind of dive into at the beginning of this journey, and it's just a lot to keep track of. So I think taking that into account as well when you're going into this and knowing that it's a lot more than just beautiful photos online and getting free things and whatnot. There's a process to it, and I think once you start looking at it as a process and you start building different routines from before you decide to branch out, making sure that you set aside time to write and to create content and that you're putting together a calendar so that you can plan and whatnot. When you set those things into play before you quit, I think it'll make it easier for you to really transition into that full-time content creator lifestyle because you have to make sure you work so that you can get paid and get opportunities. I think that's one of the things that's difficult because at least in my 9 to 5, I could I could like read blogs all day, and if I didn't feel like working at one point, like there was a little bit of leeway, but now I feel like I have to make sure that I'm doing all that I can to continue to not just stay relevant, but to also stay top of mind for any brand partners that I have.
Mhm.
But the transition wasn't too difficult because I had already been in leadership positions, so I was used to managing my day. But I definitely feel like if it's something you're interested in, it's important to just get started now and with what you have. I think a lot of times people want to wait until they have, more money to buy products and pay for a fancy photo shoot or a space and all these things when I think it's important that you get scrappy at first and you make do with what you have and you showcase the things that you're doing currently that you have currently depending on whatever your niche is, because getting started building that audience takes time. So I definitely tell people to just to dive in and see what works, and you just have to try. I think we sometimes hold ourselves back because we're like, oh, I don't want to like look stupid or I don't want to put myself out there
Mhm.
and like fail. But no one has ever succeeded from doing everything right the first time. So I've learned along the way through trial and error. Like my photography has gotten so much better over the years because I've just continued to practice and to watch YouTube videos and read articles and whatnot to help hone my craft. So I say get started and practice makes perfect, and also just build routines.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, if you're interested in this, head over to her Instagram. She has an IGTV series called Black and Blogging. So that might give you guys some extra insights as well. So
Mm.
give her a follow and definitely watch her IGTV series. And I'll link
Yes.
that in the yeah, and I'll link that
Thanks.
absolutely, and I'll link that in the show notes as well for everyone to just click and watch. So what came up for me when you were talking about, putting yourself out there when you want to become a content creator or an influencer? I know one of my biggest challenges was now I have the awareness to note that this is what the challenge was. At the time I didn't, but was really working on my self-worth and being able to know that I deserved to create a life on my own terms, and also
Mm,
that I could create boundaries and standards and be my own advocate. So for me, I had a lot of codependency issues. So, you know, negotiating a rate or not working for free or having a pushback or saying this is what my rate is or this is what my contract is. Those are difficult things for me in the beginning. I had to really get comfortable with saying no or saying
oh
like
yeah.
this is what I deserve or this is what I need, and doing all of that stuff because I was definitely a people pleaser, definitely a
Mhm.
pleaser, definitely a yes person. Like, I can do it, I got it, give 120% all times, always over giving.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you like talking to me right now?
Yeah, yeah. No, and when I was reading about you, I was just like, this is like a soul sister. Like, when I was reading all your
Hmm.
information, I was like, she and I have a lot in common. So yes, I was definitely a people pleaser, definitely very type A. And so I had to learn really to, again, have my own humanity be my own well-being and my own humanity being my best and first priority. So I really had to learn that, it's okay to say no, and people actually respect you when you say no. And it's like, it's okay to have boundaries. People
Hmm.
respect you when you have boundaries. It's okay to have standards. People respect you when you have standards, you know? So I really had to learn those tools of, stop people pleasing.
Right. Yeah.
Stand in your own power, have standards, have boundaries, be your own advocate, and show up fully in your life and your career. Because when I was looking at other entrepreneurs who were in this space, none of them had problems saying no. None of them had problems
Right.
pushing back. None of them had problems saying this is what I will and will not tolerate, or this is what my standards are. And I was just like, well, if I want to go from sort of amateur hobby to a professional, I need to learn how to act like the professionals. And that started with a mindset shift. I started from the shift of I have to always say yes so everyone will like me and think I'm valuable, to no, I'm already intrinsically valuable. I get my validation from myself, and this is what I stand for. So did you ever
Yeah.
have that moment of that mindset shift between um I don't have to always overgive or say yes, to I am a business, I will get respect, and I can make my own rules essentially.
Yeah. And I think this is something that also started prior to me deciding to branch out and become an entrepreneur. I think that when I really started to sink my teeth into my therapy sessions and really became much more self aware and just, I started to see what was wrong with the things around me and the way that I was behaving in my relationships, because I was truly allowing people to step all over me. And I think with
Mhm.
that greater self awareness, that's what brought on the panic attack, because I knew I wasn't living in my truth. I knew that this wasn't a situation that was going to help me to blossom or showcase all that I had to offer. So I had to get out of it. And so that was one aspect of it. And then now as an entrepreneur, I I truly and wholeheartedly believe that self belief is the foundation to everything in life, every single aspect. Because when you believe in yourself, you no longer put up with people's BS. Don't, you don't stay in jobs that don't serve you. You don't stay in relationships with other people, whether it's romantic or just a friendship, who don't value you and value what you bring to the table. And you also, allow yourself to get more and to strive higher and to aim for what it is that you deserve. And because of the fact that I was new to this, I was a little nervous at first because I was like, well, I'm not a photographer. I'm not like, I don't really know how much I should be charging, what I should be doing. But as my talents developed and as I noticed that my audience and my platform was growing as well, and that I was providing value to people and that I was really doing a damn good job, that was when
Yeah.
I had to say to myself, like, Aisha, you have what it takes. These brands are reaching out to you because they see it as well. So don't let them take advantage of the fact that you're so good and that you have this audience. And I had to just believe in myself and know, like, even today, like, if I say no to a brand, I'm fine because I know that there's another one out there who sees my worth and my potential. And they may not come to me tomorrow or next week, but it's going to happen and I will be fine because I'm not going to compromise what it is that I bring to the table just to say, like, oh, I got to work with so and so, or I got this opportunity. Because I know that, like, I've worked so hard to get to this point,
Yeah.
and I'll be damned if if I just throw that to the wayside just because I want to appease someone else. So I think once you stand firmly in your self-worth, your self-belief, that's when everything around you shifts and changes. And I've noticed that so much just in my interpersonal relationships as well. Like, I know what I bring to the table as a friend, and I have no doubt about that or insecurity about that. And I think everyone else is starting to really not look at me as the people pleaser anymore. And I feel valued a lot more because it starts from me. I value myself, so everyone else should follow suit. And then if you don't, then it's okay. We can just both move forward, whether that be a brand or a relationship or another situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just goes back to, you know, especially even in this business and all business really, it's all about relationships. And it always starts with the relationship that you have with yourself and like knowing what you deserve, knowing who you are, and knowing that your value comes from within. It's intrinsic, and you don't have to show, do, perform, or prove your worth to anyone. You're worthy just because you're here. And then everything
Hmm.
else is just gravy. Yeah. So I absolutely,
Exactly. Yeah.
absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when my livelihood depends on it, I'm not about to sit here and take scraps from these brands. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
exposure is not going to pay the bills.
Exactly.
This
Like,
product is not going to put food on the table.
yeah.
So
This one's not going to accept lipstick for rent. Sorry.
exactly. I don't know what they do in your community, but here,
If
my
you want,
landlord
I
would
need
not accept
something.
that. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, so on a exciting note, are you getting married? Because I saw here that you can talk about properly planning for a destination wedding during the pandemic. So is that a
Yeah.
personal thing or
It
want to
is
spill some
personal.
tea with
No, I can definitely spill some tea about this. So, my fiance and I are getting married in
us?
September. I'm so excited. In September, in Sintra, Portugal, and we oh my gosh, we've been engaged now since 20 December 2019. Thankfully, we always wanted to get married in 2021 because we knew that we were having it so far away in
Mhm.
Portugal. So we wanted to give ourselves and everyone else enough time. So our date hasn't changed, but we're working with some amazing planners out in Portugal, and they've been fabulous. And it's just been like a really exciting process. I didn't know I wanted a fairy tale wedding until I saw the venue that we chose. And it's like this big like pink mansion house like in the forest. It's really cool. And yeah, and it's funny though because the venue is really big, but we've always wanted like a really intimate wedding. So the goal is like right now we're a little over, but we the goal is about 60 people. And right now we have about 70 or so people who have RSVP'd. But I'm really excited. I picked my dress in September, and now I'm just like plugging away at all the other little details and planning for my bachelorette and bridal shower and all the exciting things that lead up to it. But yeah, that's what's happening.
That is so lit. Yay, that's super exciting. I couldn't imagine planning it during a a pandemic. I bet that had its own
Oh,
of anxiety, but you sound super excited about it, so that's really good.
yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, we still are not allowed in Portugal yet, but I think that's the only part that's really stressing me out at this point.
Yeah.
I think with a destination wedding, you have to just plan way in advance so you can just do things little by little, and that's been really helpful for us. So now we're just waiting for them to open up the borders and allow us in. But we still have some time. They're opening it up to the UK, to the rest of the UK in May. So from all the articles that I've read and predictions from different travel analysts and all that stuff, we should be fine by the fall. So
Good.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, all the vaccines are rolling out, so that should be good.
Exactly,
And so
exactly.
were you with your fiance prior to your self-love, self-care journey, or was he someone that, came to you once you started, really working on your self-love and self-care journey?
I met him like right at the beginning of my
Mhm.
self-love journey. Um, so I had a really terrible breakup and relationship prior, and that was something else that also fueled this journey inward. And he ended up popping up right in the early end of it, right in the part of it. But it's been nice because I definitely feel there is some stigma about dating while you're on a self-love journey and your self-care journey. And people are like, "Oh, you have to make sure that you're whole and you're this and that before you start dating." But I definitely feel that you can grow while being with the right person. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a relationship with someone who was really receptive and supportive of my personal growth and my personal journey. I think it's just about setting boundaries, though, in that where I'm not just going to leap into this relationship and throw all my self care out the window. I still, prioritized myself and also got to know him and have our relationship grow and inspire him too to seek therapy as well for his own, things that he was going through. And I feel like therapy is just so important. And so it's definitely been a beautiful journey for both of us to continue to grow over these past few years. So yeah, that's a testament to you don't have to, you know, be completely whole and actualized before you can start dating. Because if that's the case, then all of us need to be single until
Yeah, no,
until the end of time. Like,
no, yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think you have to wait because I think when people say that, it almost seems like, well, I have to be 100% healed and perfect before
right.
I'm like ready for love. And it's just like, no, that's actually like the opposite. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, we want to be complete whole people. But it's a journey. And I
Yeah.
think it's a journey that will always be on. You'll always be rediscovering yourself. You'll always be evolving. Your level of consciousness will always be awakening and getting on, higher planes or whatever. And I think what you did is really smart. You found someone that you really resonated with and you inspired each other to be better, more empowered versions of yourselves. And I think that is a really true testament that you can grow, with someone
Mhm.
while you love yourself and grow in love with that person as well. So I think, yeah, I think that's great. I don't agree as well with you have to wait and blah blah blah. It's just like no, life
Yeah.
life waits for no man. And I'm sorry, you
Exactly.
find someone you vibe with, hold on for dear life. Like
Yeah. Right. Hello. Like, oh no, you're
hello.
perfect, but I'm gonna put you on ice until
Yeah.
I okay, great. And then they're gone forever. And
Exactly. Hold on. Let me go self-actualize real quick. I'll be right back.
right.
No, get out of here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Get out
So
of here
no.
with that. No, if somebody else come up. Not today, Satan.
Right.
Not today.
So funny. That's funny you say that because that's like one of our favorite like phrases we say is so.
True. Not today. Not my love. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
So you have been such a pleasure having on the podcast. And I know that you have a podcast, Rewritten. So do you want to tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that as we wrap up?
Yes. So Rewritten is my baby. I am so excited. I started it last year. And it's all about self-love, rewriting your narrative, and it tackles various subjects that come back to that specific foundation.
Mhm.
So whether that is boosting your self-confidence, thinking about your sensuality and self-care, prioritizing yourself, forgiveness, all of those topics, I think, tie back to loving yourself more deeply and knowing that you can always rewrite your narrative as many times as you want, as often as you want, as long as it fulfills you and it fills you up. So, in my episodes where I'm by myself, they're usually pretty short, between 7 to like 10 minutes, and then I sometimes have guests on, and then it's a bit longer from there. But yeah, I think it's meant to just, boost your mood and to help you to feel more empowered on a day-to-day basis.
I love it. I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Aisha, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I feel like you're my soul sister.
Yes.
Yeah. So, if there's one thing you want everyone who's listening to take away from this conversation, what's that one thing you want us to know?
Hmm. So I feel like I kind of said it already, but I guess I'll elaborate just a little bit. In the fact that self-belief is the foundation, like you have gotten through so much in your life up until this point. You have faced and conquered many an obstacle up until now. So it's all about trusting and believing that you'll continue to get through and that you continue to be a light to not only yourself but those around you. And when you believe that, you'll embody that and you'll emit that energy to the world around you in every single decision you make. So I just say to everyone, just practice believing in yourself, practice that those affirming words and that uplift, be your greatest cheerleader, because that is going to then make everything else fall into place.
Yes. Amen.
Yay.
Yeah. For everyone listening, I will have where to connect with Aisha and follow her all in the show notes. But do you want to quickly share with us where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on Instagram at Aisha Beau, and I also have a YouTube channel. You can find me youtube.com/Aisha Beau. My blog is aishabeau.com. I'm very easy to find. Everything is Aisha Beau.
Love it.
Yeah, yeah, and then rewritten podcast.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Aisha. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast and share this with a friend who might need a little self love today. And until next time, everyone, be well.